Kind of crazy. Maybe he was a real lunatic. Who knows? Um, anyway, around that time, it was in the 90s, I moved to Port Clinton. And it was so strange because Rocky Ridge is a town not that far from, we have Port Clinton, Oak Harbor, Rocky Ridge. And there was, there's a stone quarry there. And at the time, it was in the 90s sometime. I lived over in Oak Harbor, and there was an actual axe murderer on the loose in the quarries, which was not that far from where I was living at the time. Far enough, but not far enough. So, yeah, that was really creepy because they hadn't caught him yet. He was. They did eventually catch him in the quarry, but he was from Michigan. And he had chopped up his wife with an axe. So there you go. You just never know. And it was just so strange that this also happened, 91. So really strange. Okay. Legs on the tracks. Again, this is real stories from real people. I got one hell of a disturbing story that happened to me a few years ago in the Parisian metro. This happened at station the Calvaire district, which is a pretty nice neighborhood, actually. I had a regional train to catch at a bigger station to visit my aunt in another city. But first I needed to reach the central station using the metro system. So I entered the station, waited for my train. There were only a couple people on the platforms. I waited and waited, but it still wasn't coming. In Paris, it's not unusual to be able to see the next or previous station through the tunnel from the platform. So people stand on the edge of the platform and patiently look in the dark of the tunnel to see if they can spot the next train coming, or if they can see it arriving at a nearby station. So I did just that. I looked at the previous station through the dark tunnel and saw the train was actually there, but not moving, and not coming toward me. I thought it must have had some technical issues, and since it was only 100 meters away from me, I figured it would eventually just start again and come. After a few minutes of waiting, it got to a point where I could, miss my bigger train if I didn't leave this station now. So I had to make a decision quickly. Either know that it's coming and wait, or bolt out of the station and take my bike to rush to the central and not miss my train. But then I heard some kind of weak moan coming from the tunnel. I figured maybe there's some technicians on the tracks who I can't see. And the other one where the train is standing by. Or maybe there's just some random person on the tracks. And that's why this train stopped, which happens a lot in Paris. But usually they tell you on the speakers. I walked to the end of the platform to have a better look at the dark part of the tunnel. I couldn't see a thing at first, but as my eyes adjusted, I got chills down my spine. Close enough so I could see there was something, but far enough so it was still too dark. And I couldn't be sure what I was seeing. I saw what roughly resembles a naked male human body laying on the track, but the position was weird, and the angle such that I couldn't see ahead and wasn't sure of the position it was even in, and then it moved. Thanks to the government, I could make out a pair of hairy flex legs that were extremely skinny, with very white skin. The legs were facing me as if someone sitting in front of you fell backwards from their chair. It moaned a little more, making my shocked self snap back into reality, realizing it was an actual person and one in a very unfortunate position. I couldn't see much, but it was clearly someone crippled. I figured if there had been any impact, it would be much messier. So this probably hadn't happened yet. But the poor guy seemed completely dizzy and barely conscious. I turned around and started running to the middle of the station where the safety lever was. Excuse me. But as I was about to reach it, I saw two security guards rushing the opposite direction to me, obviously to the rescue of the poor guy. It was clear the current was already off and there was no service. I really wanted to know what happened, but I really didn't have the time. Later that day, I Googled the crap out of this and checked all the news websites, and there wasn't a thing. Nobody, there was nothing there. My best guess is sick psycho had kidnapped and stripped naked a disabled, paralyzed person and put him on the track for fun in the hope he would be squished by the train. I never did find out what exactly happened. There was nothing, police reports or anything. So, did something happen? We'll never know. Ever have one of those stories where, something happened, but nobody heard of it or talks about it, or you don't see anything about it, but you know it happened yourself? Yeah, those are some strange, strange things. So, what about ghosts? What about Bigfoot? Anybody ever encounter a Bigfoot? Just curious. I haven't heard, there hasn't been too much about Bigfoot out on the airwaves lately. Just wondered if he was still around or something. We haven't heard too much from Mr. Bigfoot. About some haunted places. I know there's been plenty of people with that. A lot of strange encounters with just, strange people. How about with the woods? Strange encounters in the woods. Ever encounter anything really? This one's Strange Encounters in the Woods. This is a true story. Lake Isabella, summer of 2015. My wife and I went down to the general store to pick up some more beer. On our way back up to our campsite, we saw a skinny old man just standing on the side of the road. We didn't think anything of it. Next morning we packed up and headed north to find a new campsite for the night. As we packed up, we saw that same old man sitting by a tree about 30 yards from us. My wife and I looked at each other and started packing faster. Getting a little creeped out, I grabbed my weapon that we always carry on trips and kept it close. We finished packing, and as we drove towards him, he gave us both a blank stare. That night, headed up the Kern River, we stopped to get a bite to eat. As we sat down to eat, we saw an old newspaper clipping about the Bull Run fires. I feel my wife squeeze my arm tight, and I hear a faint WTF. That old man we saw had a cabin up near where we camped that had burned down, and he was never heard from again. We asked the waitress, and she smiled and said, he was a cool guy. At this point, we were super freaked out. We finished eating and drove away as far as we could. Have you ever encountered somebody like that? Probably a ghost from something that happened in the area. Look at all the prisons and stuff that, strange things that happen and they see people. So, another one is Stoddard Wells, Johnson Valley, about 8 miles in the desert. This was about 7 years ago. I was riding shotgun in a friend's truck. We were leading a small convoy of 3 vehicles to a hill we dubbed Christmas Tree Hill, which is back into a valley, then up a steep cliff-sided shale road. We were coming up on where the trail splits off to the shale ascent and came upon a late 1980s white Cadillac and 3 very unprepared passengers. They looked so very out of place and didn't want any help or even water. We had no idea how they got to that spot. But we didn't stick around to see what they were there for. Their clothing was out of place. Hi! Good to see you. Hi. Yeah, these are really creepy stories. And these have actually happened to people. So we're doing real life strange encounters. You know, that's like I said. Anybody have any encounters with Bigfoot or anything? A lot of strange people out there. How about totally weird animal encounters? Here's a couple of strange UFO encounters, which is right up our alley here. So, it's the topic of a UFO is one which everyone has an opinion. From the strong belief to the condescending skeptic, everyone has a deep-rooted beliefs regarding the subject. Some believe UFOs are travelers from other planets or dimensions. Others believe them to be experimental military aircraft. These are stories from different countries and eras to show people have been reporting the same characteristics and attributes in UFOs and ETs for decades upon decades. Do you believe in aliens? How about that movie? What is that movie? I'll think of it. I will think of it. Trust me. Okay, this is a true story. The Bowling Green apparition. During the night of the 12th of February, 2010, this hasn't been that long ago, lifelong paranormal skeptic Roy Shaw was walking his dog, Devon, in Devon, England. Wandering through the quiet streets of his neighborhood, he began to approach his local lawn bowling club. We were startled by an odd object hovering high up in the sky. Hazy and distant at first, it began to descend slowly and move near his direction. Circular in shape, it suspended itself above the bowling club, and Shaw entered the grounds to get a better look at the object. He watched in amazement as it zigzagged around before landing on the far side of the green. He was astonished to make out a 100-foot-long spacecraft with blue and red lights streaming along its underside. Kind of like ground effects. Okay. At this point, a 4-foot-high white apparition exited the ship and floated towards him across the lawn. It was about 4 feet high and seemed to be translucent and moved very slowly towards us. I was transfixed because it made a droning noise, which sounded like my, repeated over and over and over. He later reported to newspapers. His dog Sydney, an animal he stated is normally very placid, began growling and baring its teeth at the spirit. At this point, Mr. Shaw ran for his life with such haste he twisted his ankle in the process. Another dog walker in the area claims to have seen the ship dart off into the sky at a 45-degree angle. Mr. Shaw still claims to be a paranormal skeptic even after this encounter. And he even made a sketch of the UFO. Do you believe in UFOs? I believe there is other intelligence. I really do. I don't think we have the... we shouldn't be so arrogant to think we're the only ones in the universe. I mean, seriously. There was one night we were camping at Long Lake Retreat, which is about, I want to say, 3 to 4 hours away from Port Clinton, Ohio, due south. So, excuse me. We were there with my sister-in-law and other people. And it was a summer night, of course. It was nice. It was a beautiful night. It had to be about 2 in the morning. Looking up at the sky, and there was about 4 lights up there. And they started zigzagging in different directions. I mean, they were zigzagging. They would stop suddenly and start zigzagging, all 4 of them. And then this went on for a couple minutes, and then they were gone. It was the strangest thing I had seen ever. I had never seen anything like that. So, has anybody ever seen any strange things in the sky? Okay, let me know. This one's called the Wyoming Case. In 1974,